Today on How It's Made Dream Cars, one of the most luxurious supercars ever, the Rolls-Royce Phantom. Goodwood, England is the home of Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, a company whose cars are synonymous with evocative design, engineering and craftsmanship. The founders of the company could not have had more contrasting upbringings. Charles Rolls was educated at Eton and Cambridge and was a keen aviator, while Frederick Royce was the son of a miller who had to become the family's main breadwinner at the age of 9. Despite the differences, in 1904 they began to build an incredible alliance born out of their mutual appreciation for engineering and motor cars, and Rolls-Royce was born. Unfortunately, the death of Charles Rolls in a plane crash ended their partnership, but not before they had designed and engineered what most people at the time considered the best car in the world, the Silver Ghost. In 1925, the Phantom became its replacement, with model variations for the next 65 years. In 1998, German carmaker BMW acquired Rolls-Royce and established a new company and built this new manufacturing plant. Debuting in 2003, the new Phantom signalled a new direction for Rolls-Royce. The car's space frame chassis is built in Germany and then shipped to the Goodwood plant. The Phantom has one of the largest all-aluminium chassis ever, made from 200 sections of extruded aluminium and 300 alloy parts. It's welded together by hand, requiring 2,000 welds with over 100 meters of weld. The finished chassis is incredibly light but strong and is both stiff and dynamic. Inside the paint shop, it requires 22 steps, 5 layers of paint and 7 days before the body is perfect. And in total, 45 kilograms of paint are sprayed onto the body shell. Technicians spray the body by hand and are able to reach the most challenging areas, such as the hinges. Moved on a transfer dolly, the aluminium body travels towards 2 programmable paint robots that will apply a layer of primer. The primer will provide resistance against UV lighting and metal corrosion. The robots are 2 of only 4 throughout the entire Rolls-Royce factory. They're also capable of opening the doors, bonnet and boot lid to apply the protective paint at both the joints as well as to the internal skin of the body panels. The robots can apply the primer coating at various film thicknesses. After receiving the primer coat, the body shell will undergo 3 more painting steps, including colour coating and 2 phases of clear coating. The high-gloss clear coating lacquer will create a mirror-like finish. And with 16 colours with 44,000 paint hues to choose from, the outcome can only be satisfaction. Once the painting process is complete, a small team of surface finishing experts attend to the car. First, sanders are used with an ultra-fine grade paper to sand the body perfectly. Then buffers and cloths are used to finish the body. The advantages of surface finishing are long-term wear, corrosion resistance and material hardness, as well as a better decorative appearance. This operation cannot be done by robots. It requires a human touch and attention to detail that can take up to 5 hours to complete. Another meticulous and unique contribution to the vehicle's illustrious image is the coach line, a stylistic pinstripe. In automotive bodywork, decorative pinstripes are usually a thin vinyl tape. On this car, the feature is painted by hand, by one person, only and always. With a miniature paintbrush made from squirrel hair, the craftsman dips the brush into the glossy enamel paint and delicately paints a 3mm line onto the surface of the body shell, stretching the complete 6 meters of the car. The perfect illustration of the hand craftsmanship that goes into building a Rolls-Royce Phantom, this nail-biting process takes 3 hours to complete. Rolls-Royce's Phantom uses select veneers from around the globe to create the dashboard's wooden finish. The veneers are stored in a humidified room to absorb moisture, making them supple enough to use without cracking. What sets this car apart are personal touches like the leather upholstery colours or the 20,000 available wood veneer combinations. "42 wood parts will furnish the interior of the car. First, a series of wood sheets and adhesive sheets are stacked to form the basis of the piece of wood. The multiple pieces are placed into a special 1-ton heat press. It slowly descends on the sheets, compressing them for a short period of time, but enough to bond the layers together. The veneer sheets are now thicker, but still delicate pieces of wood to be used for the car's interior trim. Elsewhere in the factory, a large piece of wood sits on an automated carrier, where it's cut and reshaped by a computerized precision saw. The saw will cut the wood to a pattern that has been pre-programmed into its computer. Eventually, the block is cut and shaped into a final part for the cabin. As with everything else in the factory, the wooden veneer dashboard panels are crafted by hand. First, veneer pieces are placed on a work table that's covered with a green velvet cloth to protect them from scratches. Using a traditional practice known as book matching, the two pieces are aligned so the wood grain patterns mirror each other. The pieces are then taped together. Next, a protective plastic glue sheet is stuck to the front of the veneer pieces. The sheet is rubbed to remove any air bubbles. The center join of the two sheets is then marked, as well as a guideline for the next stage. Then, using a template, the veneer piece is cut to size, ready for the next stage of the process. The sheet is placed on top of a panel template that has sharp raised edges and is held in place with tape. At another workstation, a piece of plastic is placed on top of the sheet before a large mechanical press is lowered. This cuts the veneered piece to the desired shape. And the thin wooden veneer covering is now perfectly shaped to fit a wood dashboard panel. At a different workstation, another wood panel part sits in a holding mold and is then covered evenly with wood glue. The pre-shaped veneer is then placed onto the panel and held in place using masking tape. The panel and veneer top are then placed into a vacuum frame press. Here, a large polyurethane membrane is compressed using a vacuum for 45 minutes. This bonds the panel and veneer together. In the next stage at another workstation, the blue protective plastic sheet is removed. Any areas of the veneer that are damaged are repaired using bonding glue and matching raw materials. To speed up the glue's drying time, an iron is used. After removing any excess material, the panel piece is filed so that the repair is unnoticeable. At another workstation, any areas that don't match the component's colour are meticulously touched up by hand. Then a quick-drying lacquer is applied, which dries to form a hard protective coating. Again, the panel is touched up until it's deemed perfect. The panel is then left to dry for an hour. The surface of the veneer panels are sanded on a wide belt sander to give it a polished look. And a power buffer is then used to polish them to that final finish shine. The next stage for the piece we saw drying earlier is to have its electrical components fitted. This panel is part of the climate control system. Finally, the part is installed into the car's cabin. First the wiring is connected, then the panel pushed into the centre of the new Rolls-Royce Phantom, ensuring that the veneered panel fits superbly into this supercar. To make the leather interior, first a piece of grade A bull hide is placed onto a worktop. This automatically pulls the material so that any flaws, mosquito bites or scars can be seen. It takes 17 days to complete the car's interior, which includes using 11 bull hides. 450 pieces of leather are used to produce the interior. The flaws in the material are marked with a white wax pencil to highlight the areas not to be used. These include areas that have stretch marks. At a computerized cutting table, the pieces to be cut are selected using a computer, which then uses a green laser to project the patterns onto the leather. This device offers flexibility when positioning the patterns to ensure as much of the leather is used as possible. Once all selected, the green laser patterns flash before the next stage of the cutting process begins. The automated cutting table vacuums the material against it, while a laser-guided self-sharpening blade cuts out the selected patterns. The system can produce up to 56,000 incisions a minute. Once the cutting is complete, the leather pieces are removed for sewing, while the remains and residue are discarded. It takes up to 2 weeks to upholster this car's interior. Top stitching is used to stitch the company's emblem, and as it's a sewing technique that's on show, it has to be flawlessly finished. Furthermore, the seamstress that sewed and fitted it to the vehicle's trim personally signs each leather component. In the sewing room, seamstresses assemble the leather parts of the car's interior, including the headrest cover. Next, the edges of the base of the headrest cover are then cut so they can be bent around its yellow template. After bending the material along the edges, it's then tacked into position. Before the two elements are finally stitched together. Once complete, the part is then turned the right way round to reveal a logo embossed headrest cover. The cover is taken to another workstation for fitting. First, the foam headrest is mounted onto a machine and is then covered with a green plastic bag. The air is then vacuumed out, which compresses the foam headrest, making it easier to fit the cover. Once the air is pumped back in, the foam headrest and its leather cover return back to their normal shape and size. Next, the foam and leather cover are fitted onto the plastic mould of the head restraint. The two sliding metal shafts are used to insert the part into the seat back. The leather corners of the cover are then fixed using a specialised tailoring tool. The leather headrest cover is then stitched together and has a final check to make sure that it's smooth and ready to be fitted to the seat in the cabin. Sitting in the lap of luxury requires a little labour. First, the leather seat's cover is fitted over its frame. It's pulled, pushed and smoothed until it fits like a glove. Once the seat back cover is fastened to the framework, the headrest is added. The only thing missing now is the rest of the Phantom. It's easy to assume that the Phantom's refined appearance means a slow ride, but make no mistake, it's fast. With a 453 horsepower V12 engine, it reaches 100 kilometers an hour in just 5.9 seconds. Using an air hoist to move equipment overhead, the rear axle of the car is positioned onto a motorized jig. The front axle is then lowered into its position. Next, the engine and gearbox are lowered from another station and placed above the front axle. The radiator is carried to the front of the engine and installed. The drive shaft is then added, a key mechanical component which transmits the torque from the engine to the rear wheels. Once the drive shaft is correctly positioned, it's bolted to the car's 8-speed automatic gearbox. Next, the motorized jig with the running gear is positioned beneath the body shell, which is suspended overhead in a conveyor lift. When both major sections are joined together, this process is called the marriage. The jig containing the running gear is raised for the next part of the process. Front suspension and braking systems are checked to ensure the bolts and attachment brackets are secure. Then the motorized jig is raised further, so that the running gear is in its final position to be fixed to the body shell. A torque wrench is then used to bolt the parts together. As final verification for safety and quality, a ratchet is used to manually check every fitting. Installation of the glass into this car is done manually. A vacuum glass lifter is used to place the windscreen into the body shell. Plastic mallets are used to secure the glass into position. Then with urethane adhesive underneath, the side, corner and top windscreen mouldings are fitted. After installation, the glass is cleaned. A lifting device is used to fit a 21-inch aluminium alloy wheel to the front wheel hub. Next, the automated platform is tested, which retracts the iconic mascot, the Spirit of Ecstasy, into the radiator grille. The Spirit of Ecstasy, sometimes known as the Flying Lady, was designed in 1911 by sculptor Charles Sykes. He was commissioned after Rolls-Royce became aware of owners affixing inappropriate ornaments to their cars. Once the inspection is complete, the grille, which is polished for 5 hours and covered in a protective plastic film, is mounted onto the front end of the vehicle, completing the esteemed front fascia. Now the vehicle is complete, it moves on to the next phase of testing. During a 20-minute water test, 73 mid-pressure showers simulate the effects of a monsoon. A torch is used to check for leaks in the cabin. The car now stands in a dynamometer roll booth, which uses computerized test rollers to simulate various driving conditions. These examine the gearbox, suspension and braking. It also checks the engine's power and torque. The Phantom may not instantly come across as the typical aggressive sports car seeking approval at a racetrack, but its appearance and pedigree sets it apart. Although it's built in many versions, each Phantom has hand-built coachwork with luxurious styling that pays incredible attention to detail. How many other cars have a discreetly hidden umbrella? Considering the 2 months of assembly and the traditional craftsmanship involved, it's a dream car that is like no other.
Discovery's night of all-new automotive action continues at 9 with Texas Car Wars. Then off-roaders Gary and Bill travel to a remote Mexico River Valley at 10 in Car vs Wild.